Hi Gold Team, I wanted to walk you through the Lesson 3 assessment that you did for today. I put together a slideshow here with my answers. You can compare your answers to mine, and as always, you can message me if you have any questions. The first question is, what was the main idea of common sense? And just like the title says, the author is arguing that it is common sense that the Americans should fight for their independence and they should fight against tyranny. He says that the British government and the British king are tyrannical and the Americans should not have to put up with that anymore, and it just makes common sense to him that it is time to break away. He also is arguing that common people like us should be making the laws, not kings and queens. It's time to break away from a monarchy. Who wrote Common Sense? His name was Thomas Paine. He was actually from Britain. He was an immigrant into America during the Revolutionary period. So he's very knowledgeable what it's like to live under British rule, that's for sure. And he's taking advantage of America being the land of opportunity. He comes over during the Revolutionary period. Ben Franklin actually convinces him to come over, and he becomes a successful author who circulates a lot of propaganda in support of the patriot cause. Number 2, letter A. Who was the main author of the Declaration of Independence? If you look at the picture on the bottom right, there are 3 men standing there. The tall guy standing up is Thomas Jefferson, and he was the main author. He actually wrote the Declaration of Independence. He wrote a rough draft. He showed that rough draft to the 2 men that are sitting in the picture. On the left with the glasses on, you see Ben Franklin, and on the right sitting, you see John Adams. These are all leading figures in the revolutionary movement. They will edit, they will make a few minor changes, but for the most part, his original thoughts did end up in the final copy. Letter B, what arguments did the authors give for declaring the colonies free from British control? They claim that all men possess unalienable rights. That means rights that you're born with that you cannot be separated from. They cannot be separated from you. To alienate something means to separate it. And they are arguing that there are certain rights that you're born with that no one has the right to take away. They also argue that the king violated their rights by passing unfair laws, and of course Parliament would be at fault as well, and that the king broke the social contract with the colonists. A social contract is an agreement that we will let you rule over us if you do it in a fair way. But they're arguing that he's not doing it in a fair way, and that's why they have the right to break away. What 2 sides emerged in response? Letter C, you have the patriots who chose to fight for independence, people like the guys that you see there in the painting, and then you have loyalists who remain loyal to Great Britain. They don't think that we should break away. They don't necessarily help the British. In some cases they do, but they certainly don't help the patriots. So America is divided. Number 3, letter A, who urged her husband to remember the ladies? That was Abigail Adams, and you see her pictured here. That's John Adams's wife. John Adams was a leading patriot. His cousin is Sam Adams, the guy who started the Sons of Liberty. John Adams will become the first vice president of the United States and the second president of the United States. He's definitely a leader in this movement, and his wife actually was a very influential woman in the Patriot movement as well. She knew that he was working on the Declaration of Independence, and she really wanted to make sure that women were included. Of course, that's not going to happen. Letter B, why did the authors fail to address the rights of women, African Americans, and Native Americans? These groups had no representation at either of the Continental Congresses, so both of the meetings that took place, one in 1775 and one in 1776, no women were present, no African Americans, no Native Americans, and historically these groups were not treated equally, either in a social sense or a political sense. We've got a long way to go for that to happen, but certainly people are questioning these things in the 1700s. There's no doubt about it. And number 4, think about the main ideas expressed in the Declaration of Independence. In what ways are these ideas important in today's world? Be specific. You may not have exactly what I have, but I chose the phrase life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and unalienable rights. Thomas Jefferson wrote that those are the rights that we're born with. You have the right to live, you have the right to have liberty, and you have the right to pursue what makes you happy. That was not always the case in Britain. The king could have you beheaded on a whim, so really you didn't have the right to live. He certainly took liberties away from people, and in many cases, you were not free to pursue what made you happy. But here in America, those are the things that we hold very dear: the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They still form the basis for our republic and our way of life. So that's what I chose to pick out from the Declaration. You may have chosen something different, but those are definitely phrases that you want to be familiar with, and you want to recognize that they are part of the Declaration of Independence. And we should never, ever forget that. And even though women, African Americans, Native Americans were not mentioned, we certainly today would include all of those groups of people when we talk about unalienable rights and the right to live, the right to have liberty, and to pursue their happiness. I hope you learned something about the Declaration that you didn't already know. Let's never forget what it stands for.